Hello guys. I hope you're doing well. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Lona and I'm a planning and evolution engineer. And as a planning and evolution engineer, I touch on various aspects of IT. So if you're new here, karibu sana. This is a YouTube channel where we share IT information in general. This is the kind of information that we feel like is useful for us in growing our IT career. So remember to check on my previous videos. Kindly watch the videos if you haven't already, and remember to leave a like on each and every of those videos. Also share the videos as much as you can, and kindly subscribe to this YouTube channel. So if you're watching right now and you haven't subscribed, kindly subscribe as you continue to watch. Another thing, guys, let me know what you think about my videos. If there's something that you feel like you want me to talk about specifically, let me know in the comment section. Also, the general comments about how you feel about my videos, also let me know in the comment section. So in our video today, I want us to talk about how to get started in the field of cloud computing. So if you're out there and maybe you've been wanting or you've been aspiring to become someone in the cloud computing industry, this is the video for you, especially for a beginner. Remember, when you talk about cloud computing, it's really a huge topic. There are different many products that you need to learn as far as cloud computing is concerned. There are different kind of skills that you need to acquire to get yourself into cloud. Also, there are different cloud service providers that you might want to learn along the way. So I feel like as a beginner, as someone coming to the cloud environment for the first time, or someone who is new into cloud environment, it can really be confusing to know where to start from to build your skills slowly by slowly to finally become like an expert in something or a specific area in cloud computing. So I feel like this is the video for you. I've put together like some few tips on where it can where you can start from, and slowly by slowly build your skills as you move towards becoming an expert in cloud computing. So number one, remember, when you talk about cloud computing, you need to have some basic knowledge. You don't just come and say you want to become a cloud and start learning cloud directly. There's some basic knowledge that you really need to have for you to start getting that journey into cloud computing. And it doesn't really apply to cloud computing alone. It basically applies to different sectors of IT, whether you want to become like a network engineer, an infrastructure engineer, even a developer. There's that basic knowledge that applies across that you really need to have at your fingertips for you to get yourself into the different areas of IT, and one of them being cloud computing. So when I talk about this basic knowledge, you need to really have it on check to make sure that you have them at your fingertips for you to progress to the next level of in your journey to becoming a cloud engineer. So some of these basic skills that I'm talking about is things like server administration, things like understanding Linux servers, understanding Windows servers, understanding the basic networking concepts, understanding the basic storage concepts. I feel like when you have those, it's really now easy for you to get into any area in IT. It's really easy at that point to get into cloud computing. It's really easy to get into becoming an infrastructure engineer, a networking engineer, a developer. I feel like that is the most basic knowledge that you must have when you're getting yourself into any area as far as IT is concerned. So because we are now talking about specifically cloud computing, it still applies to cloud computing. So make sure that you have a good check of knowledge when it comes to Linux servers. At least know the basic commands when you're administering Linux servers. Know Windows servers very well. Know the concepts of basic networking. I'm not talking about the advanced skills. I'm talking about the basic knowledge of networking, the basic knowledge of storage. Just make sure that you have those ones at your fingertips. And from there, I can assure you that it will become easier for you to get into cloud. Because as I said, cloud is built of what we know already. It's not something that came out of nowhere and came with its own concepts that we didn't know before. No, cloud is built of what we know already. Remember, the basic building blocks of cloud is storage, networking, and compute. And these are the things that we already know, especially if you're already in the field of IT. But if you're new, if you're totally new in the field of IT, then I can say that make sure that you have those basic knowledge. Also, you can check on my previous videos. I talked about how to prepare yourself for the entry level interview in the IT industry. So those are the skills that are general. It applies to each and every sector in the IT industry, and you can actually use that video to make sure that you get yourself those basic skills. That's I'm talking about someone who is totally new in the IT industry. Those skills that I talked about in that video, where you're preparing yourself into going for your first entry level interview in the IT environment, those are the kind of skills I'm now talking about, because I talked about the basics of understanding things like networking, understanding IP address, understanding subnetting, understanding the inbuilt firewall of our servers, Linux and Windows, understanding Linux itself, understanding how to administer Windows and things like that. Those are the basic knowledge that will actually guide you a long way becoming anything as far as IT is concerned. And so because we're talking about cloud computing right now, it's definitely applies to cloud. And as I said, cloud didn't come with its own, strange concepts. No, it's built on what we know already. It's built on servers that we know already, which we've been working with in our day-to-day activities when you're working. It's built on storage that we already know. The concepts of NFS, the concept of NAS, SAN network, those kind of things. It's that things that we already know that cloud is built from. So it's not something that's strange, that's coming from I don't know where. Maybe the only thing that will differ when it comes to cloud is because there are other products that cloud introduces which have some strange namings, but that doesn't mean that you don't know that you don't do the basic knowledge, because even those products are actually built from the basic knowledge that we already know. They are built from the servers that we already know. They are built from the networking that we should already know. They're built from the storage concepts that we should already know. So make sure that at your first step, your basic knowledge check is okay. Okay, make sure that you have that basic knowledge, and you can actually move to the next step. So once you have that basic knowledge, number two, now proceed to learn what cloud is all about. So just go online and search what cloud computing is all about. Just knowing the general knowledge about what cloud computing is all about. Get to understand why it is actually being embraced right now by many companies. Get to know the advantages of using cloud as opposed to the usual infrastructure that we had in our different companies. Gets to know the concepts of cloud, just general concepts of cloud. Understand why it's really being embraced right now. Understand the advantages, understand the disadvantages, understand why you need to move to cloud or why you don't need to move to the cloud. Just know the general knowledge of what cloud computing is all about. Once you have that general knowledge, number three, I can say now, proceed to learning cloud computing using one cloud service provider. So you can pick one service provider at this point, maybe AWS or Azure or Google, these big three cloud service providers, and make sure that you learn now from there. Get to know the specific services which are available in those cloud service providers. Remember, the concept is the same as I've always said when I'm talking about cloud. When you learn AWS, it will be easier for you to learn Azure or learn the other one, Google, because the concepts they're using are actually the same. The cloud concept is the same and cuts across the different cloud service providers. So just pick one at this point as a beginner. Don't move from this one to the other one to the other one, because you might get yourself confused. Just pick one as of now. And I can recommend AWS for a total beginner. If you don't have like a clear cloud service provider which you want to learn, some of us already want to learn specific cloud service provider. Maybe you already want to learn Azure, or maybe you already want to learn Google, or you already want to learn AWS. So I feel like go for that one particular that you already have in mind that you want to learn. But if you're totally new, I feel like I can advise you to start with AWS. And the reason why I always say I advise you to start with AWS is because AWS is a bit I feel like it's a bit not really simpler, because I'm also saying the concepts. I feel like the information to learn as far as learning AWS is readily available on YouTube. Their website, AWS website, they have a lot of very nice documentation about their products. So I feel like it has a lot of readily available information that you can learn. And because there are also so many people who are learning AWS, I feel like it's really easier for you to look for information from a friend or from another person who is also learning AWS. So I feel like, and also because most companies are now using AWS, so I feel like a lot of information is available for you to get started using AWS. But remember, if you already have an idea of which cloud that you want to learn, also start with that one. If you already have that clear, reason why you want to learn this specific cloud service provider, go for it. Remember, the concepts are the same. I'm not saying now you come back and start learning AWS, yet you already know what you want to do. I'm just talking about someone who is really new and they don't have a clear path of what they want to learn as far as cloud is concerned. That's what I'm saying. I advise that you start with AWS, and the reason for that is because of the readily available content to learn with. And also, once you get yourself into learning that cloud service provider, make sure that you focus on the very basic services. Don't go learning everything at a go, because remember, there are so many products as far as cloud services are concerned. A lot of products that can actually confuse you as a beginner. So make sure that you just learn the basic services which are mostly used. And as far as cloud services are concerned, there are different services, as I said, and companies use different services, but there are those services which must be used, remember, must be used by any company that embraces cloud. Things like EC2, things like networking, when you talk about VPC and subnetting, things like maybe databases, things like maybe DNS, load balancing, and the most basic services when it comes to using cloud. So make sure that you focus on those ones. Leave the advanced products for future or for later learning. Just focus on the most basic services at this point, because remember, you are a new learner, and you want to take like step by step, steps of learning, and so you don't want to get yourself into a lot of products that can easily confuse you. So make sure that you pick the most basic services and learn from there. And also, as you continue learning, another thing to do is to make sure that you do a project. I always insist, even if you watch my previous videos when I talk about learning cloud, make sure that you do a small project. That small project will actually give you the confidence of understanding those basic services, and making sure that you have that confidence of using those services to support a customer, for example. So that even if you go for an interview, you don't just go for an interview and say you've been learning the theory. At least when you have something to show that you've done a small project, it will give that potential employer some confidence on you that you actually know how to use these basic services. So make sure that you just do a small project. And the project which I always talk about is just create a small website. Create a very small website. And when you create a very small website, you might find yourself learning so many concepts of cloud just using that small website. When it comes to AWS, for example, you learn so many things. You learn about EC2s, you learn about networking, you learn about load balancing, you learn about databases, you learn about DNS. So there's so many things that you can learn just by doing a very small project. And I'm insisting on you doing a project because you need to show that you have some hands-on experience, because remember, at this point you don't have like industrial experience. And when you're going for an interview, you need to be able to show that you're confident about the things that you're learning. And the only way to show that you're confident about the things that you're learning is if you can show that you've done a small project. And actually that can be really a nice thing to add to your CV. So make sure that even as you learn and doing that project, add to your CV that you've learned these services as far as cloud computing is concerned, and you've gone ahead to do a project that you can easily explain to your potential employer, just to sell yourself out and show that you have confidence in using those cloud services. So that at that point, I feel like you'll be really ready to get into cloud, because at that point, remember, you already have your basic skills checked. You have understood what cloud computing is all about, general knowledge, and now here you're focusing on learning a specific cloud service provider. And not just learning, but you're going ahead to do some projects that can actually make you stand out as far as understanding those services as concerned. So at this point, I feel like you're actually ready to go and search for a small job there, maybe a volunteer job or an internship, or even just an entry level job, because at this point I feel like you're really ready to get yourself into cloud computing. And remember, at this point, you're just learning the basic concepts. And so at this point, you can actually start, improving yourself now, slowly by slowly. Get to know what, especially if you're lucky to get a job and you go to start working for a company, you'll actually start to see what kind of products this company is using. And maybe now you can start learning those products, because as I said, there's so many products in cloud, but companies use different products. So if you find yourself learning on all products at a go, it might actually be like a waste of time, because at the same time you're confusing yourself, and number two, you're learning so many things that you might not even apply even when you get your job. So at this point, when you have done up to that point of doing a project, I feel like you're ready to get yourself into cloud. So apply for those jobs. Make sure that you really also always improving yourself, reminding yourself things, so that when you once you get a job interview, you'll actually be ready, to explain some of the things that you'll be asked in that particular interview. At this point, also make sure that you get into some forums. When you go to LinkedIn, there are so many forums and communities that advocate for these cloud services. So make sure at least you get into one, and from there you'll still learn so many things. You'll still open your mind to so many things that people are using out there, because people share different things depending on what they're using. So you must actually get yourself into knowing some other things when you get yourself into this forum. So if it's possible, get yourself into this forums, especially in LinkedIn. There's so many different communities and forums that you can get yourself into, that can help you to always improve your knowledge as far as cloud computing is concerned. Another thing is, you can actually purpose to do a certification. I know certifications at this point may not be really it can be something expensive if you're a beginner, but if you can afford to do a certification, I can say go for it. It's also something that still show your potential employer that you really are looking for this knowledge, you're really serious on what you're doing, and that's why you've gone ahead to like study and finally pay and do a certification. So if you can also do a certification, and so for a beginner level, there's a certification that I always talk about, especially if you're learning AWS. It's called AWS Cloud Practitioner. So check it on YouTube. You can go through the course on YouTube, and then when you're you're ready to do an exam, you can actually go ahead and do your examination for that particular certificate. And at least that's also something that you'll, add to your CV and show that, you're serious in looking for this kind of knowledge. And now you see you have a certification that can actually, be an added advantage of selling you out to a potential employer. So if you can do a certification at the lowest level as far as AWS is concerned, it's called AWS Cloud Practitioner. And if you're doing any other, if you're doing Azure, if you're doing Google, also they have like the basic certifications. So you can also check on my video, which I talked about the certifications that you can do from these cloud service providers. Go for that video, watch it to the end, and it will actually guide you on the type of certifications that you can do as far as cloud computing is concerned. So once you do that basic certification, so in the future, as you continue increasing and expanding and getting more skills as far as cloud is concerned, you can actually get ready to do another advanced certification going forward. But this one you have to do slowly by slowly. Don't rush yourself. Make sure that especially if you get a job, that will be really, really good, because you'll be getting your experience from the job, so that by the time you're ready to do a certification, it will actually be really, really easy for you to just revise for a few months and go ahead and do your certification. Another thing that I can say is that make sure that you're always upskilling. Don't just read today and you let it go. Just make sure that you're always upskilling. Remember, at this point, you're at an entry level person, and we've talked about the basis of where to get started from. But make sure that once you get started, ensure that you're always upskilling, going to the next one slowly by slowly, because that's the only way you can become an expert. Once you have the base and you have a clear path of how to follow, so make sure that you don't stay there. Always upskill, always make sure that you're improving your knowledge, because at the end of the day, you want to become an expert. You don't want to remain at the entry level for the longest time. You always want to improve so that you can become even better at your workplace. So make sure that you're always upskilling. Don't stop at the point where you do a certification. No, just make sure that you're always upskilling. The good thing about IT is that the moment you have skills, you can actually get a job anywhere. So I feel like the secret in the IT industry is to always make sure that you're upskilling. So if you upskill each and every day, and if you have money to pay for a certification, I feel like that one will actually pay off really well, because it will show that you're upskilling and making sure that challenging yourself by doing a certification. And so that will give like your potential employer that courage of knowing that you are a person who is always passionate about what you're doing. So I really hope that the video is going to be helpful to you as you begin your cloud computing journey. So I really wish you all the best and enjoy your Christmas holidays. Bye.